a breath of fresh air. That's what we get from our respiratory system, is a breath of fresh air. Well, hopefully it's a breath of fresh air. Not always. But when we are breathing in and out, we typically breathe about 14 to 16 times per minute. And when we exercise, it increases much, much higher than that, because we are lacking oxygen in our blood and our body responds by breathing more frequently. What's interesting is that babies and even toddlers breathe much quicker than adults do as well, and that increases over time. So let's get to the organs of the respiratory system. When we're taking a breath, we of course can breathe through our mouth, but we can also breathe in through our nose, and that's what I'm going to really talk about today. So the nose area has two parts. We have the external nose part, and then we have the nasal cavity. The external nose has cilia in it that'll help clean or filter out the air, and then our nasal cavity really helps to moisten the air, warm the air, and really produce some mucus to help collect any junk that comes in through our body through our nose. From here, the air is going to move into the pharynx. And the pharynx, you remember from the digestive system, was a common area for food and air. And so this area here is where you're going to find the epiglottis to cover up the opening to the respiratory system. And there's three divisions of the pharynx, which you're going to read about as you go through this unit. From the pharynx, the air is going to move into the larynx. So the epiglottis will remain open so that the air can go down into the larynx. Now the larynx is going to be it's just an airway. It's an opening. It's an area for the airway. But it also contains our vocal cords, and so the air going across there will help us make sound. From here, the air is going to go into our trachea, or our windpipe. And this is going to be, if you actually feel your windpipe here, you can feel it. There's cartilage there that allows the windpipe to stay open. Like our esophagus, there's not anything really supporting it. It's just a tube, and it allows for stretching as the food goes through. Whereas our trachea, there's actually C-shaped or U-shaped cartilage all the way through here to help maintain that opening, the open airway throughout our trachea. That cartilage that's in our trachea is C-shaped because our esophagus is right behind the trachea. And so when we do swallow food that maybe needs to expand within the esophagus, that area in the back allows for that expansion to take place. From here, the air is going to branch out into the bronchi, or bronchus if you're talking about a singular one. You have the primary bronchus on the left side, primary bronchus on the right side, and then that's going to go into the secondary and tertiary, and then we can get into the bronchioles. And so really what we're looking at is smaller and smaller tubes all the way down until we finally get to the alveoli. So as we look at the very end of our respiratory system, we end from the bronchioles into these alveoli. So it's a cluster of the alveolus. And so you look, there's capillaries that are all around here, that are all around these alveoli. And there's alveolar ducts as well that bring air, so it's even smaller opening from bronchioles into the alveoli. At the alveoli is where you're going to have this gas exchange. So the capillaries are very closely associated with each alveolus, and the oxygen coming in is going to go into these capillaries, and it's going to attach itself to the red blood cells, which contain a protein called hemoglobin, which contains iron molecules, iron atoms, and that's what really is that's what's going to carry the oxygen through our bloodstream, is that iron and that hemoglobin protein. So then the oxygen's going in, and the carbon dioxide, which is a waste product from our body going through cellular respiration, aerobic respiration, is going to go back into the alveoli and then follow the path back out to get out of the body. So when we exhale, we have carbon dioxide coming out of our bodies. So a couple things I want to actually go back and talk about a little bit. The trachea is going to have cilia as well. I talked about how the nose has cilia. The trachea is going to have cilia as well, also to help clean the air, try to trap any like foreign objects that shouldn't be in there, any bacteria, viruses, those type of things that shouldn't be in the trachea. Now what's interesting is when you think about the respiratory system is that it's everything that goes in besides air is going to stay in. Once it goes in, it stays in. So like smoke, whether it's cigarette smoke or any other type of smoke, or coal dust, or like any other dust, or asbestos, like coal and asbestos have been in the news different times because they're people working in the coal mines or different businesses that were exposed to asbestos. That goes into your lungs and it stays there. Whereas some of the oxygen that comes in won't fully stay in. It comes out as well, and then the carbon dioxide as well will go out. Now I want to show you one. This I think was an interesting fact, that if you spread out the alveoli, it's the size of a tennis court. It's kind of crazy.
The lungs are organs that are part of the respiratory system. They allow your body to take in oxygen from the air. They also help remove carbon dioxide from the body. The entire respiratory system works together to breathe air in and out of the lungs. This includes the nose, mouth, larynx, trachea, and the bronchial tubes within the lungs. Air enters the lungs when we breathe in because the lungs expand. The lungs expand when nearby muscles contract to make the chest cavity larger. These muscles include the dome-shaped muscle called the diaphragm and the muscles of the rib cage. As the muscles contract and the lungs expand, air is sucked through the nose and mouth. This is known as inhalation. Your nose filters, wets, and warms the air before it passes through the larynx, trachea, and the bronchial tubes within the lungs. At the same time, the heart pumps blood, rich in carbon dioxide and low in oxygen, to the lungs through the pulmonary arteries. The pulmonary arteries end in a mesh of tiny blood vessels called capillaries. This mesh surrounds the round air sacs called alveoli. The alveoli are like bunches of grapes at the end of the bronchial tubes. When you inhale, air flows down the bronchial tubes and into the alveoli. This inhaled air is oxygen-rich. Gas exchange occurs between the air in the alveoli and the red blood cells located in the blood in the capillaries. During gas exchange, oxygen from the air in the alveoli passes into the red blood cells in the capillaries. The blood becomes oxygen-rich. At the same time, carbon dioxide, a waste product carried in the blood and red blood cells, moves into the alveoli. The air, rich in carbon dioxide, flows out of the alveoli and bronchial tubes toward the nose and mouth. This is known as exhalation. Meanwhile, the oxygen-rich blood flows back to the heart through the pulmonary veins. The heart then pumps the blood to the rest of the body. Exhalation occurs when your diaphragm and ribcage muscles relax to make the chest cavity smaller. Air rich in carbon dioxide is forced out of the lungs and through the nose and mouth. The lungs are now prepared for another breathing cycle.
So as you can see from that video, that the diaphragm plays an important role in allowing us to breathe. And remember that all comes back to regulation from our brainstem that allows us to breathe. Now, one last thing before we go.